There are three main things that I've determined to be crucial when running a successful Airbnb business. And this is a disclaimer. This is not for those of you who have multiple Airbnb properties or those of you looking to build a very large Airbnb business. This is more so for those of you that are looking to get started, maybe with one or two properties, and are looking for ways on how to do that. Here are the three things that I've determined to be crucial when automating your initial Airbnb business. Number one is the property. You're going to need a property, whether you're doing rental arbitrage or whether you're renting out your own home, which is the method that I went with, or if you're deciding to just rent out a room in your home. Property is the most important part to making sure that this business is successful. And with that, you want to make sure that the property is in tip top shape. You want to make sure that there are no major repairs that need to be done, because the last thing you want to do is have a guest come into your property and then you have to communicate with them while they're going through some major repairs that need to be done on the home. You don't want to disrupt the guest's experience by having a home that isn't ready to be rented out. With this property, you want to make sure that you furnish it well for the guest. Whether you decide to go with a theme, which I highly recommend because now we're moving more in towards these experiential stays, you want to kind of get ahead of the curve by providing guests with an experience while they're at your place. You want to make it so that they're more inclined to take photos and videos while they're at your property. They're more willing to recommend your property to friends and family that happen to be passing through your area. And you just want to make it so that the guests feel comfortable. You want to make it so that they enjoy the space that they're in. This also helps a lot. The furnishing helps out when it comes to taking photos and marketing your property. You'll stand out from a lot of the others if this part of the process is done correctly. Some items that I recommend getting for the home, other than furniture and other than making sure it doesn't need any major repairs, are your lock boxes. So you can either go with a digital lock box, something that you can control from anywhere in the world. You can invite users to it. You can send your guests codes and you can change these codes often. Or a more simpler approach would be just to get a lockbox for the front door and share the code with any guests that are coming in and out, and making sure that there is a physical key in this box and making sure that guests are aware that they will need to return the key once their stay is over. I do recommend having a spare key somewhere nearby so that if anything were to happen and you're not there, the guests will be able to always have access to the home. The next thing is security cameras. I highly recommend installing these on your property before you get any guests. Obviously, you are not allowed to put any cameras inside the home, and I wouldn't want anyone to do that anyway. But you can put cameras outside of your property to kind of help not only for the safety of the guests, but also to secure your property, because most of the time unless you live right next door or unless you live really close by, you are going to be far away from the property. So you want to have an idea of what's going on when you're not there or when there are no guests there. You want to make sure that you're aware and the property is taken care of. So I recommend, I'll put a link below on the exact cameras that I've used, and they've been great so far. Now, this isn't necessary, but I had this installed in my home before I even started renting it out on Airbnb, and it's proven to be something that I really love. But it's a Bluetooth thermostat. So I am able to control the temperature of the home even when I'm not there. And it works perfectly for when guests are leaving and they just, sometimes they leave it really cold or they leave it really hot. So from a distance, I am able to bring the home back to a neutral temperature so that when the next guests arrive or when my cleaning crew comes in, it isn't freezing or it's not too hot. And I really like this feature, especially if you are not on a fixed electronic bill. Sorry, if you're not on a fixed electricity bill, this comes in handy because you can control the amount of energy that is being used at your property while you're not there. If you are not on a fixed electric bill, I do recommend getting that before starting your Airbnb journey because that can become your biggest variable cost if it's not something that you can plan for. meaning if it's not going to be the same amount every month, it's a little bit harder to plan for your expenses down the line. So I recommend getting yourself on a fixed electric bill so that way you know what to expect each month. And my last tip here for the property is if you're able to, again, this is something that I kind of just got lucky with, but my washer and dryer tend to give my guests most issues, but because they are connected to the Wi-Fi, I'm able to diagnose and see exactly what's going on with both my washer and dryer. So again, if this is something that you are able to have, a smart washer and dryer, a smart thermostat, a smart lock box, anything that you can have that it's smart to allow you to tap in whenever there are issues, if there are ever issues that do arise in the future, this is a great way to set yourself up for success when starting out with Airbnb. Number two is property management. And this might sound a little scary, this might sound like a lot, but really it just comes down to having a really amazing cleaning crew. Because of the strategy that I went with, which was midterm rentals, I really only have to contact my cleaning crew maybe once a month, if that. And they will come in between guests and do a deep cleaning for my home. I try not to have bookings too close together just because I want to allow time for my cleaning crew to come in and clean up the property. If you are looking to do a more short-term rental strategy, you can still keep this in mind. This is probably the most important part for you when doing a short-term rental strategy because of the turnaround. You have a much quicker turnaround, so you have to make sure that your cleaning crew is very solid and they understand your needs and they have open availability. So I do recommend shopping around until you find a cleaning crew that suits your needs. It may take a few tries. However, once you get this part of the process down, it'll make automating your business so much better. I recommend finding a company that's willing to restock if you are not nearby your Airbnb and you're not able to come in and kind of refill the home with some of the essentials such as toilet paper, paper towels, towels if needed. I recommend finding a company that is very Airbnb centric so they understand the needs of your property and of your guest. They are willing to restock any items that might be needed, such as the ones that I mentioned. Because when you're not there, these little things tend to not matter to you. So it's nice to have a crew that is able to recognize and see, okay, this needs to be restocked. Let's go ahead and do that for a small fee. I think the fee is worth it. Um, and I think that's something that you want to keep in mind is making sure that whatever cleaning company you go with, they are very familiar with the Airbnb process and what that entails. Last thing on this is you want to make sure that you're getting the property service. So think of it as when you were living in the property, or if you were living in the property, you want to make sure that you're scheduling your lawn service regularly because you don't want your guests to come and stay and the lawn is looking a hot mess. If you have pest control that comes regularly, you want to make sure that those are scheduled and automated so that way your house is being taken care of and you're not having to have any surprises come up with any guests like, oh crap, I forgot to schedule my pest control appointment. Those sort of things you want to make sure that you're staying on top of, and they can be easily automated by setting up reoccurring appointments so that you don't have to worry about scheduling it on a monthly basis. For me, for example, the way that this looks is I do have pest control coming out every 2 to 3 months. My home is in the middle of the woods essentially, and so when the seasons change, the critters tend to come out. So I make sure that my pest control is on top of that. Every 2 to 3 weeks, I have lawn care come out and mow the lawn and clean up the yard so that when the guests arrive or while the guests are even staying there, they're able to have a fresh landscape for them while they're there. And other than that, that's really all of the maintenance that I need on my home at this moment. If there is something that comes up, for example, I had a plumbing issue, a minor plumbing issue with the guests recently, and I was able to get a plumbing service out there within 24 hours to fix the issue. Normally, it's nice to have someone or a company that you can call on. I recommend having a plumbing company, HVAC company, roofing, all of these things available just in case if you need it. But again, this is just all just in case. So that way you can provide the guests with the best experience possible. Lastly, number three, the third thing that I found to be crucial in automating my Airbnb business is the guest communication. So, this is from the moment that the guest interacts with you, from an inquiry on Airbnb all the way to them checking out. You want to make sure that you have very clear and open communication with them so that they feel as though they're being taken care of and they're excited to come stay at your property for however long they'll be there. This part can be quite tedious for some people because they just kind of want to get the guest in there and leave it at that. So I've created a automated messaging template for you to communicate with your guest, and I'm going to link it down below. Just remember to, personalize it, make it your own, but essentially it touches the main points where a guest would interact with you. This is from them creating the initial booking to a few days before check in, then check in. And then while they're at their stay, I send a nice automated message. And then lastly, when they check out, I like to send a message on what that process looks like, thank them for their stay, and then let them know to leave a review of their experience so that others can have a good idea of what it would be like to stay at the property. Outside of those automated messages, just kind of touching base with the guest, there might be some communication here and there with the guest having a few questions. For example, how far is your property from the airport, or what are some things to do in the area, or while they're staying, especially because I have longer term stays. Things might come up, but very minor things here and there. This is why in the beginning of the video I mentioned that this process is really good for those of you who are looking to get started or have less than 3 properties, for example, because once you have more than that to manage, you might want to look into outsourcing the communication so that it doesn't fall all on you. So, all in all, I will say that the automated messages is probably the most communication you'll have to do with each guest. And it just gets easier and easier with time as you get familiar with the platform and get familiar with being a host. Those were 3 things that I found to be crucial in automating my Airbnb business. Again, this works really well because I only have 1 property at the moment. But I think a lot of people get scared of getting started because they feel as though they can't do it all on their own. And I'm here to tell you that it's so, so easy. I do a full-time job, I have a business on the side, and yet I'm still able to continue my lifestyle and operate my Airbnb business to create passive income. And it's been amazing. And I promise that if you follow these three important steps, you will be able to achieve that as well. In later videos, I plan on discussing how you can do this at scale, and I also plan on discussing a few more tips on how to really put all of this together and create your own Airbnb business in 2023 and beyond.